Hey everybody, Ken Coscia here, Silva Method's lead instructor and international training director, and welcome to today's lesson on anger and what you can do about it and how to convert it into something that's healthy for you rather than debilitating. So a little disclaimer here, full disclaimer. I don't pretend to be a therapist. This is not meant to replace that. However, over the decades, I've collaborated with many a therapist, psychologist. It's been part of my background, my study, and I have some thoughts I'd like to share with you that hopefully would shed some light on this thing called anger. Because today there seems to be so much unhealthy expression, so-called expression of anger and hate. And some have led us to believe and actually think that, well, I'm just expressing myself. I'm getting it off my chest. Forgive me, I mean no disrespect. However, is it really just a healthy expression, a getting it off our chest? Or are we running the risk when we get caught up in anger of it becoming toxic to the point where it throws us off our game, debilitates our thinking, gets in the way of the higher thinking functions of the frontal lobes, and causes us to make ridiculous, bad choices. So let's take a look, and I submit this for you. A few decades ago, I had a woman who became a partner, collaborator, who I loved, and I wish she was still here alive. Her name was Dr. Pat Barry, and she did 10 years of a dissertation on anger. And I learned a lot of this. I want to just give her some of the credit for introducing. It's become part of the additional studies that I do with my work with the Silva Method to help my coach clients, to help people who come to the Silva Life and Intuition Immersion experience. And she came up with what she identified as 5 types of anger. So let's take a look and think about it in your own life. Number 1, there is resentment, and it is a form of anger. Have you ever had the experience of thinking about something in life or at work where you've been, let's say, on the job for 10 years or more, maybe 20, and you feel that you're the person next for that promotion, that opportunity, and it goes to somebody who just started months ago? It's kind of hard not to feel a little bit of resentment, like, it should have been me. Why him? Why her? Can you relate? There's so many instances in our life when we feel we were overlooked, not appreciated, and we build up what? A resentment. A jealousy, if you will, of how come everything works out for him or her? They're so lucky, they're so happy. The danger is, if it builds, it can become toxic, and it doesn't help us. I can tell you that neuroscientists have actually done fMRIs, brain scans, and your brain on anger is not healthy at all. It doesn't do any iota of good for us. And that's the danger point. So more about that, and we're going to look at some steps, what you can do about it. Number 2 would be, so there's resentment, and then number 2 would be rage. Rage is the kind of anger when there's a target, when we're just so upset, we're just so beside ourselves, we feel that we've been taken advantage of. Someone broke a promise, someone cheated on us, someone made an agreement and stole from us and didn't keep that agreement. You get the picture? Can you relate? Have you ever been through that? And we become just blind. It's like if ever you've been in a club, in a bar, where somebody has been having too much to drink and they get into a rage, watch out, run. Many a good Samaritan, in the interest of trying to help somebody, have gotten hurt really severely, because when somebody is enraged, they lose control. They'll throw things, they'll throw punches, they'll do things that later they look back and they're embarrassed. Oh my God. Get the idea? The third kind of anger, so there's resentment, there's rage, and then the third would be hate. Hate is very similar to rage, except it has a target. Rage has no target. It's just crazy all over the place. Watch out. Everybody take cover. Hate, though, has a target, usually a person. So we see this sometimes with couples. Someone has cheated on them, someone has broken a promise, or we see this in business where someone has stolen from us, and we just hate them. Do you know that it's considered to be one of the most powerful stressors when we feel hate towards someone or something? And do you know that although we may think it's justified, we pay more of a price? If and when you've ever allowed yourself to hate someone or something, it doesn't do anything to them, and only what? Damages us. Causes damage neurologically, it interferes with digestion, and it adds to the stress hormones in the body, which then can compromise the immune system. Is it making sense? You with me? So, resentment, rage, hate, and then the fourth type, helpless and hopeless anger. That's right, it's a form of anger. When we have had it up to here, when we are just so overwhelmed, we don't know what to do, when we've lost confidence in ourselves, when we feel like we don't even believe we can figure it out, we start feeling helpless and hopeless. And that is the precursor, literally, to depression. And if it's not checked, it can become clinical depression. And when clinical depression sets in, all your chemistry changes, and you're going to need therapy, you're going to need medication. It's very, 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 very difficult to control. Helpless and hopeless anger in the very beginning stages is when we begin to give up. It's like, why bother? Can't fight City Hall. You know the expression. Can you hear me? It's not a healthy place to be, is it? And then the fifth type of anger. So I'm asking you to think about yourself. Have you ever been there yourself? And take an honest assessment. Did it do you any good? And the fifth type, you ready for this? Here it comes. Good anger. That's right, I said good anger or justified anger. It's important that sometimes if something is just wrong, or we feel it's immoral, and I don't mean to go into judgment, but where it's just not acceptable, it goes against our own moral compass, our integrity. We're being asked to do something by our boss. We're being asked to do something by the corporation we work for. We're being asked to do something by a friend or a spouse that we feel is just goes against everything we believe in and that we aspire to. That's when it becomes good anger or justified. Now hold the thought. That doesn't mean then we want to ruminate on it, because all the research psychologically and in neuroscience teaches us that if we ruminate on it, if we dwell on it, it becomes toxic and nobody wins, and it does more damage to us than anything else. So the good anger is, hey, we made an agreement and you've broken that agreement. This is unacceptable. So you're having that conversation with someone. And if you're not able to do it physically, then do it quietly in a reflection. And then you got to move on. You know, when I was a kid, I used to play baseball in Brooklyn, New York. And although I'm not as much of a fan as I used to be, I like the Red Sox. I like watching occasionally, especially some of the, like the World Series. But something I always remember is about when you're up to bat, you get 3 strikes and you're out. And I use that as a model of my own life. That you don't want to be quick to judge. So if somebody breaks an agreement, if someone does a disservice, and it's unacceptable, okay, that's strike 1. Talk about it. Work it out. But then if they do it again, that's strike 2. We've got to talk about it. Okay, this is wrong. This, we made an agreement. We got to stand up by this. And then if they do it a 3rd time, that's strike 3, you're out, we're done. And that's when you burn your bridges with that person or that situation or that whatever it might be. Because if we don't, then we run the risk of what? Disrespecting and not love ourselves and not loving ourselves. And we do more damage to ourselves. So good anger, justified anger, is what motivates us, what gets us moving, what kicks us in the butt to take action and do something about it. Can you relate? So what are some of the steps? Again, I don't mean to play therapist here, and this is not to replace that. Please, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're in such a rage or you're just so angry or upset, you need help processing that. If you're not able to yourself, then seek help, professional help, somebody who you trust, or maybe sometimes a good friend, whatever it is, sometimes a coach, whatever it might be. However, there are some steps, some things. Number one, first step is, when you're feeling angry about something, whatever form it is, in a quiet reflection, when you're not distracted, just sit back, maybe close your eyes, a few deep breaths, or just quiet, or go for a walk, and ask yourself, what am I angry about? What am I really upset about? What am I really angry? And it's interesting what comes, if you're in a quiet moment, what you'll discover. You might discover that it's really fear-based, that you're actually afraid of losing it all. You're afraid of not being accepted, or maybe we're afraid of things not working out, whatever it might be. And I can tell you that all the research that I've been studying for decades, literally, and now it continues, is that aches and pains that appear in the body, and they're not due to an accident or an injury or a malady, are often the result of what? Anger. And if you look at the work of Dr. John Sarno and others, it's been identified that often the emotional pain of the upset and the anger is so difficult to handle by ourselves that it's easier to just let it, it's called somatizing. It shows up in the body, back, neck, areas. And it's an interesting exercise that often if you start feeling a headache coming or a discomfort, and there's no reason for it that you know, in terms of an accident or an injury, and you ask, what am I really angry about? What you're doing is called self-awareness. You're raising your awareness, and often the pain will dissipate. It'll be gone. And you'll prevent the headache, whatever it might be. And if that's the case, then you know you nailed it. So first step, ask questions. What am I really angry about? Second tip, second thing you can do for yourself is empathize with that person. I'm not saying accept what they did or agree nor condone it. No. What I'm saying is empathize. Put yourself in their shoes and say, what would it be like to be in that person's shoes? If I may quote my wife, she's often reminded me that in any conflict, there's usually not two sides, but three sides to the story. There's what he said, there's what she said, and then there's what really happened. It's kind of a combination, isn't it? So empathizing, meaning that you're looking at life through their eyes, as if you're wearing their shoes in their body, and what it must be like for them. It doesn't excuse what was done. It doesn't excuse the breaking of the agreement or being dishonored or unappreciated, but it does shed light on it. It helps us to recognize their humanity. It helps us to understand. We may still want nothing to do with that person. We may still want, not to do business with them, but at least then it helps us release those feelings of upset and anger that do more damage to us than anything or anyone else. And so maybe you want to Google compassionate communication and study about how you can empathize more. Third step. So number one is you want to ask questions. What am I really angry about? Number two, empathize. And number three, you ready for this? I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's one of the most effective, most powerful strategies. Forgive that person. Again, it doesn't mean you accept them, you don't condone what they did, you're not in agreement, but you're what? You're recognizing their humanity and forgiving them for not being better than that. You might even say that to them if you're close enough. You're better than that. This isn't you. I know you to be such a better person. Again, you're not accepting nor condoning what they did. You're recognizing their humanity. And a good way to do forgiveness, a very effective strategy that I teach in my Silva Method classes with my coach clients, is you got to sit in a quiet reflection. Close your eyes. Meditate or otherwise. Few slow, deep breaths so that you're not distracted. Turn off the TV games. Because you can go out and drink and get drunk and you get a temporary relief, but it'll come back to haunt you even worse. All you're doing is repressing it. It has no healthy exchange. You can get lost in TV and watch Netflix the whole weekend. You can play video games until your fingers are ready to fall off, and you'll get some temporary relief because it's called avoidance, but it doesn't solve the problem. And I mean, again, can you relate? So you got to do the inner work. It's not easy, and it's not a quick fix, and it's not to be taken lightly. You may need to repeat a forgiveness exercise many, many, many times until you really get that release. Because if you've truly forgiven, you'll feel like a burden's been lifted, like you've let go of something, and you'll think more clearly. And I can tell you, if you're hanging on to anger and ruminating on it, why is this important? Because whatever you give attention to, it's a fundamental law, whatever you give attention to, you give energy to, and whatever you give energy to will grow and multiply. And what people don't realize is when we're ruminating on the upset, we're mentally rehearsing what we don't want in our lives. We're giving attention, we're reinforcing it, and that's why we repeat it. And it's the same old, same old. So I hope this has helped, guys. It really works. I know that it will help when you apply it. I want you to do these things. I'd love to hear from you. I'd really appreciate some feedback. I'd like to hear, what more would you like to hear? And may I ask, like I always do, if you're finding this of value and it's helping you, perhaps you know somebody who could benefit from this message also and this lesson. Share it with them, please. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, a better you. Truly, I so believe in this, that when you get better, when you evolve, when you raise the bar in your life, when you are more empathetic, when you are more patient, more compassionate with others, it helps the people you work with, the people you live with, the people you interact with, and ultimately it helps the world, ultimately it helps our community. So better you truly does help create a better world. Thank you.